This is Joe Willis. I will be your clinical coach for the upcoming semester. I wanted to create this brief video to give you an overview of how to submit documents to me, as well as go over the two evidences that will be due for this semester for you. The two evidence that I'm talking about will be the OMA and the SCIP. We will be going over those momentarily, but first I wanted to give you some information regarding Blackboard and how to contact me. So right now you should be looking at the MELS or MSA, I think as we term it now, scale handbook. We'll be getting to that later on, but at this point in time, I'm going to go over to Blackboard. This Blackboard may look a little different than the one you will eventually get access to, but this video is for those students who are in Dr. Stone's MSA 603 course, where I am your clinical coach. At some point in time, you'll be given access to this Blackboard platform. You'll have two types of Blackboard, as you already know, since you're in 603. You have your course shell instructor's Blackboard, and then your clinical internship shell in Blackboard. So I'm referring to where you would submit documents to me for review as we work through the two evidences. So that would be your clinical internship shell. And you'll notate the difference as you look through the section and you see meet your instructor, then it should have my name here. So just to give you a brief introduction, as I don't think I've worked with any of you before. This is my 19th year working for Gardner-Webb as an adjunct professor. I've worked in the Master's of School Administration and also the doctoral program. I've taught doctoral courses, been a dissertation coach, served on several dissertation committees. But in what's relevant to you, I have worked in the Master's of School Administration as a course instructor and a internship supervisor for many years. I'm actually retired from public education at this time. I retired just a few days ago on January the 1st. So while I am retired from public education, I'm still going to continue working with Gardner-Webb. During my public education, I've served in many roles. I've been a teacher, coach, assistant principal, I've been principal at all three levels, the elementary, middle, and high school level. I've worked in central office before I retired, I believe, for about 19 years. During that time, I was director of technology, test and accountability, federal programs, ESL, EC, CTE, middle school instruction, safety, athletic director. But my last assignment right before I retired was the executive director of federal programs and career and technical education for Wilkes County Schools. I am excited to be working with you. I've worked with Dr. Stone for several years now, and I always enjoy working with him and his students in a clinical coach capacity. If you need to contact me, you can reach me at my Gardner Web address, which is noted here, jmb0821 at gardner-web.edu. You can also reach me on my cell phone at 336-262-0368, which is listed here. Usually I join Dr. Stone's class two times, and I will probably reference this video if I don't get it out to you before the class. I will reference this video when we first meet at the beginning of the semester, and then I will meet. That's when we will go over evidence, see if you got any questions on the OMA and the SCIP, and any questions on how to submit documentation to me. Then probably midway through the semester, I will meet with you and we'll go over task stream requirements about wrapping up your competency folio for this semester, as well as any additional tasks that you must complete. So, as I said, I'll be working with Dr. Stone, usually coming in to join class two times this semester. However, if you need additional support, you can reach out to me. We can always set up an individual Zoom or a small group Zoom if that'll help you with any problems or clarifications that you may need. Usually, you will only be able to see what's relevant to you. This is a generic shell that I have used in the past and maybe using this semester as well. But in that generic shell, some of the things will be visible to you and some of the things won't. Number one, please be sure that you complete your enrollment verification activity, not just for Dr. Stone's class, but also for my Blackboard internship shell as well. So you'll need to do an enrollment verification activity for both of those, for Dr. Stone as well as for me. What you should see when you get down to this, and we'll talk about task stream later on in the semester, as you will see what's relevant to you at this point in time, and that will be the OMA and the SCIP. In the OMA, I'm going to go over some of this today as far as the resources that we have available to you, which is the tasks and prompts, and the OMA template. But right now, I just want to go over how to submit documentation to me. The OMA is broke up into 4 tasks. And what we will do, which may be and should be similar to what you did in 601 and 602, is that you review each, you send each task to your clinical coach, which is me, for review and to look at that rough draft and give you any feedback and comments that may be needed for revision. So once you've completed a task, you go to the appropriate task. For this example, we'll say task 1, and you upload task 1. I will review task 1, give you any feedback, make any suggestions that I think would help, get it matched up to the rubric. My goal is to make sure that once we send it off, that you don't have to do any other revision to it. And we'll do that. All that revision process will be done in the task 1 for review, and the same for the other tasks, task 2, task 3, and task 4. We'll submit it here. I'll review it, give you some feedback on it, and I may very well say, hey, this is great. Let's move on. At this point in time, when you get to this point in the program, revisions occur less and less because you're used to the process. You're used to writing narratives for your evidences, and so there's a less revision involved just because you're getting better and more proficient at completing the task in each evidence. Anyway, at some point in time, I will tell you, okay, this is ready to upload to the assignment Dropbox for grading. So that is when I will ask you to upload it to the task 1 assignment Dropbox. That's where I give a grade. So that I have to give you a grade just like Dr. Stone does at the end of the semester. And this is where you earn and collect the points necessary to receive that passing grade. And so that's all documented in the Dropbox. So once I tell you to upload it to the Dropbox for grading, you upload it here, and then I will give you the grade for that task 1, which will be 100, because by the time we get to this point, it's where it needs to be to be at the profession or beyond level as far as the rubric goes. And so we'll do that for each individual task. You'll upload task 2 for me to review. I'll give you feedback. Once it's ready, we'll upload it to the Dropbox for grading. You'll upload task 3 for me to review. Once I give you feedback, we'll upload it to the Dropbox for grading. You'll upload task 4 for me to review. Once we give you feedback, then we will upload it to the Dropbox for grading. And the process is the same with the SCIP as far as me. So once we go through the OMA and you get ready to do the SCIP, the process will be the same. At the end of task 4 Dropbox, I will say something like ready for final evidence narrative review. So this is where you send the document to me in one complete document, tasks 1 through 4, and it gives me one last opportunity to look at the document as a whole and not just in the separate task. I read it from beginning to end, making sure that the content flows as it should be, and that each task transitions into the next task to satisfy the rubric. So I want to see it one last time as a full document. If at that point in time, I'll probably tell you it's good to go. Let's submit it for the final narrative evidence assignment Dropbox. And this is where we collect the final grade on it. And at this point in time, I will tell you once I grade it and you get your 100, I'll say ready for task stream and turn it in. So then you will take your narrative and you'll turn it into the turn it in check there, but you'll also turn your narrative into Dr. Stone for him to have a final review, and he'll talk about this as well when he meets with you, for him to have a final review before you turn it into task stream. So when I say and the final narrative assignment Dropbox, when I say ready for turning in and ready for task stream, that's saying, as far as I'm concerned, this document is complete and you finished. However, Dr. Stone has the final say. So he knows at that point when he's gotten it that I reviewed it, he'll ask for some confirmation that I have given permission for you to be done. And so before you actually turn it into TaskStream or upload it into TaskStream for final evaluation, you'll need to get Dr. Stone's approval for that. And he'll be going over with that. And as I said, this process is going to be same for the SCIP and the OMA. So this is how you would submit documentation for me as we proceed through the semester. Now, if you have any questions, hopefully I'll be able to get this video out to you before we meet. However, if not, once you have reviewed this video, if you've got any questions on this, just please email me and let me know. I'll try to monitor Gardner Web email throughout the day periodically. My goal is to always get back to you within 24 hours. If you need immediate assistance, you can text me on my cell phone, which is the number that I've given you, and let me know that please identify yourself as one of the students in my class and let me know that you need to speak to me. I do screen my calls, and if you're not in my contact list, I'll usually wait to see if I get a voicemail. So if you need to speak with me, just give me a call, leave a voicemail, or send me a text and let me know, and then we can connect there. So like I said, please go over this. Feel free to review this video as much as possible, as many times as you need to kind of stay relevant and to stay up to date on how to submit documentation to me. So now at this time, I actually want to talk about the evidences that we are going to be doing this semester. And those evidences are going to be the OMA and the SCIP. So before I do that, though, let's refer back to the scale handbook. So the information I'm getting ready to share with you comes directly from the scale handbook. This is the latest edition that I have. Of course, this is out of date here, but I just pulled up the first one that I saw because the information has not changed. So let's scroll down to the OMA and let me show you a few things in the scale handbook that I want to be sure you're aware of. So this is the authoritative source on how to successfully complete this part of the MSA program. Of course, you'll have assignments in your course shell that you'll need to be done. But as far as I'm concerned, as far as your internship and your clinicals, this is the authoritative source that I look at and that I go by to make sure when you make that final upload into the DRF, the direct response folio, and we'll go over what that is later if you don't already know. But when you upload your evidence, and we are talking about evidence 3 and 4 here in 603, the OMA and the SCIP, for final evaluation, you will go through at the level of proficient or higher and not have to revise again, because this is exactly what the evaluator looks like as they do that final evaluation. So this information that's always good for you to read over in the OMA or any evidence is the general description, what each is involved in each task, some other information that will be helpful for you, and then each task is specifically outlined and gone over, including prompts for each task as you go through the evidence. At the end of each of the tasks, and the information provided, you will see the rubric. And this is what I go by when I review your documentation. So I'm looking at the proficient column. I want to make sure that you at least have this, and that's a level 3, that you at least have a level 3 on each task and the final documentation so that you will pass that final evaluation at the end of the semester. If you wish to go into a level 4 or score a 4 on this, this would be scoring a 3 proficient. This would be scoring a 4, under accomplished. Then you may need to make sure that you meet these requirements as well. I'm going to make sure as I go through and review your documents, each individual task, that it is at least at this level. So this is once again, the authoritative source that I that I go by when I review your documents. Now, in going back to what we looked at a while ago is in let me get off here just a moment. In your course shell, you actually have what I'm getting ready to show you, and that's resources for each of the evidences. You'll have a resource that gives you tasks and prompts, and an additional resource. In this case, a template that you can use for the OMA. The template, the structure of your evidence is really going to be relatively the same as you go from 601 all the way through 605. As you start with the APSL and you finish with the SCIP in 605, the template's relatively the same. And as you may begin to realize, you will be getting less and less support by the terms of exemplars and examples and exemplars of the evidence as you go through the program, because it's the gradual release of responsibility. At the very beginning, you get a lot of structure, a lot of support, a lot of examples on what it needs to look like. So that process, that expectation really doesn't change as you go through the program. So you should be able to need less and less support in the way of what it looks like and how it flows as you get more proficient at going through the program. So we call it the gradual release of responsibility. I have heard some professors call it intentional abandonment. But as you get to 605, you will need your clinical coach less, because you're already used to knowing what needs to be done. So that's kind of, we pull back a little bit and help you grow as a leader and help you grow as you go through the program. So you will be more proficient and accomplished in what you're doing. So I'm going to look at the first. Now, as I said, the task and prompts comes directly from the scale handbook that we just looked at. So let's look at the OMA. And that is the organizational management. I also got an additional resource here that I will share with you as far as look fors and tasks 1 through 4. I don't think that's in my clinical shell yet, but I'll be putting it in there. So let's look at task and prompts. So the organizational management here is coming directly from the scale handbook. The purpose of this evidence, what it's designed to do, and how it's designed to help you grow, and then an overview. So the OMA, what you're going to do is do basically how is your organization structured? How is it managed? How is your school? How is it set up? What's the context of the school? How's it set up within the school system, but how's it set up within the community as well? So you're looking internally and externally at how your school is managed and structured. How's the leadership structured? The principal, is there assistant principal? Is there a leadership team? How is instructional capacity sustained and nurtured in your school? How do the teachers improve in their ability to give instruction? Professional development, how are they monitored? How are they evaluated? How does the school perform within the different mandates from local, state, and federal? How's your EC program set up? How's your ESL or ML, multilingual learner program set up? Are you a Title I school? If so, how is it set up? Are you school-wide, or are you targeted assisted? So that's all included in two. Task 3 is just about looking at the schedule. What does this current schedule look like? Analyze that current schedule, work with some of your teammates, and then see if you can develop a new draft or a new schedule based on what you find out for improvement. And then task 4 is you're reflecting on 12 competencies of your choice. OMA task 4, and then you reflect on the other 9 competencies in the SCIP. So there's 21 competencies 21 leadership competencies that you reflect on, and you've been exposed to them in 601 and 602. So in 603, you pick 12 competencies, your choice, for OMA task 4, and then you reflect on the other 9 competencies in SCIP. So whatever you didn't reflect on in task 4 of the OMA, of the 21 competencies, you reflect on the ones that you still have left over in SCIP task 4. So looking back down at task 1, And here's some suggestions of what you can pull together to support your narrative, some materials and resources, instruction on how to complete this task. But the prompt is basically you're going to analyze your school, internal and external, as far as demographics, how's it set up, how's your as I said before, how's your EC program, ESL program set up. What's the budgeting process and procedures of the school? What's the school's mission? What's the vision? What's the demographics? Some of the stuff that you can find on the school report card. How's that set up in task one? Now, we'll go into a little bit more specifics here in a minute. And task two, as I said, is how is the instructional capacity supported and sustained in your school? How is the instructional knowledge? How is there growth in that? How are instructional tools and materials selected? How are the teachers working together in a PLC or grade level meetings or department meetings? And how is the organization of the school set up? And how are the leadership roles defined in the school? And task three, here's the prompt is you'll develop a plan. You'll kind of look at how everything is set up, scores with approval by your SCIP mentor. You'll look at how the instructional capacity of the school is set up, and then maybe make some suggestions for improvement in those areas. This will be familiar to you as well, and we'll talk about it. You can rely on some information that you pulled together in a past evidence, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Task three is looking at the schedule, analyzing the current schedule, and basically making improvement or making suggestions for improvement in a new schedule, maybe doing a new draft that your principal might want to use. They don't have to use it, and the schedule doesn't have to be implemented, but what this task is asking you to do is analyze your current schedule and look for opportunities to improve that schedule and then make a new draft schedule. And then, as I said before, task four is just a reflection on the competencies, how the leadership competencies that you utilized in the OMA, reflect on how you utilized that, how it made you grow as a leader, how your competencies are being developed and progressing forward. And here's some information on that. So I would highly recommend that you read through all of this. It's very good information that will help you complete the OMA. It gives you guidelines and specifics on how to complete the OMA, and this will help you as you do your narrative. Please note that in the scale handbook where the rubrics are listed, that is what I'm going to go by as I look at each of the tests to give you feedback. Here's some important reminders, but here in this resource document, you have information and the rubric for each of the tasks, which is, as I said, what I will be looking at as I go through and provide you feedback as I go through and review. If you have any questions on the OMA, please let me know, and we will help you out with all that we can on that. As I said, here's basically directions on how to complete the OMA in this task and prompts document that's located in, I believe Dr. Stone will have this located in his course shell, and of course I'll have it in my internship shell as well. So I'm going to close this document, and we're going to go to the OMA template. So the organizational management analysis, this is just a template of how your narrative should be set up. You have each task description. Once again, the prompt is provided for you, and what you would do is under each task before the next task is listed as you would write your narrative. So this is the template that you can do to set up your narrative. This should be as far as structure goes, it should be very similar to what you've done with the APSL and the APTL. So you would just write your narrative here. Now, like I said, as you see, there are less hints, evidence-based practices provided to you, because the thought is that gradually you will be able to take more and more role of completing the narrative with less and less resources as you progress through the program. Now, one other document that I want to provide for you is the OMA Look For's Task 1 and 3. This will help you as you go through the template and set up each of your tasks, maybe look at your subheadings for each task as you begin your narrative. Task 1, as I said, that's all about giving information internally and externally about your school site. That would include introduction to school profile. You could use school profiles that you used in the past with the 601 and 602. There's not a problem with pulling past data into something that you are doing in the present as you move forward. I mean, that's what a good leader does. That's what a good principal does. It uses past data to tell them a story of what they need to do in the future to improve. So there's no problem with you pulling the information that you used in the APSL and the APTL into the next evidence if it's basically the same information. Now, you want to take out any reference to a past evidence. Whatever you used in the APSL or the APTL is now belonging to the OMA. So you don't want to be sure, anything that's labeled APSL or APTL, you need to change to OMA in that regards. So if you use information and it's labeled APSL academic performance, it would now become OMA academic performance. So like we said, you can use information you've already done. There's no sense in recreating anything, especially in the introduction of school profile. Just make sure that you revise it to make it relevant for task 1. It can't be relevant to the APSL. It has to be relevant to the OMA. So just make sure that you go through the information and it's giving you, and then that's presenting the information that needs to be reviewed in regards to what's relevant for OMA task 1. So in task 1, you're just given the structure and organization of your school. That includes the beliefs, mission, any demographic data, community demographic data, the education, the income, the history of how the school has developed within the community, any special programs that you have before, like we mentioned, EC, ESL, ML, Title I, etc. Attendance, disciplinary data, teacher quality, academic performance. You can even do a review of how the schedule's set up, the duty roster is set up, the supervision during extracurricular activities, any tutoring going on, after school tutoring, how's the school structured, the structure of the leadership team, the principal, assistant principal. It just gives an overview of this is our school and this is how it functions on a day-to-day basis within the district and the school system and within the community. Once again, look at the rubric for giving you specifics on making sure that you get to at least proficient in task 1. Task 2 is about instructional capacity building. A lot of that could be done within the MTSS implementation, however your school is implementing MTSS. So a lot of that information on how a school is using a multi-system of support for their students can really help you as you go through task 2, because that's all about instructional capacity building of teachers, indicators of performers for students, how are interventions being addressed and how they're being used, and any training involved in that. However, or you could talk about MTSS and do the following, and that's information that you did in APTL task 1, 2, and 3. APTL task 1 through 3 was all about instructional capacity building, building efficacy, building empowerment of teachers. You may have done a survey, you may have done an interview to talk about those in regards to the APTL. And you can use that information here. Just remember, as I said before, it is now belongs to the OMA. It no longer belongs to the APTL. So you have to make sure that you write it within the context of your organizational management analysis. So make sure that it matches up with what the rubric is asking for. But some things that you can pull out and use are how is teachers recruited? How are they placed? How are they mentored? How are they evaluated? How's that approach? What's the improvement process of the evaluation? How are there opportunities for teacher leadership and decision making? How are your PLCs structured? Do you have professional learning community groups? Do you meet as a group of professionals to discuss students, to discuss instruction, to discuss standards, to discuss improvement? And as you go through that, you identify the needs. based on what you're finding out, and then set up some strategic indicators of success with long-term and short-term objectives. So you look at your professional development plan, and then you develop an action plan to provide to leadership on how your instructional capacity could be improved. Once again, look at your prompt and your rubric for specific information. Task 3, as I said before, is determine the strengths and weaknesses of the scheduling process and the schedule. So not just the schedule, but the process on how the schedule is developed. Does the principal just lock themselves in the room and they do it, or did they do it with the leadership team, or does the instructional coordinator do it, or your instructional specialist do it, or how is the process for developing that schedule? As we're finishing up a winter and approaching spring each year, by January, February each year, as far as high school goes, they're already working on next year's schedule. So how is that done at your school? Make sure that you reviewed the schedule, review the rationale behind it, the law that's around developing a schedule. Now, there's certain laws as far as school schedule goes that each school has to implement. Make sure that you're aware and show knowledge of those laws as far as class size, teacher certification. Some counties can't start before a certain date. They have to end before a certain date. So that's all part of that as well. Anything dealing with performance data and EVOS and input, how is that involved in the schedule? If it is, and then what's your ratifications for suggestions of modifications to draft for a new schedule? And then you represent or show in a graphic organizer the schedule, the proposed changes, the proposed modifications to draft in the new schedule. And that's what task 3 is. Once again, task 4 is all about giving narrative reflection of the 12 competencies out of the 21 competency leadership. You'll do the remaining 9 in SCIP. SCIP task 4. So that is basically how the OMA is to be done. Okay. So that's the resources and on how to complete the OMA. Once again, if you have any questions on the OMA, please let me know, and we'll provide any clarification or answer any question that you need. So let's move on to the SCIP. The SCIP task and prompts are provided in the Scout Handbook. They're also provided for you in regards to the resources within the course shell and then my internship cell. So the SCIP is the Task Holder Community Involvement Plan, and that is all about working with your external and internal communities and stakeholders to provide school improvement. Here's the purpose of this for the candidate and why the SCIP is important. You're going to form another team. It could be members of a team that you've already developed in this program. However, make sure that as far as the SCIP goes, is that you have representations from your internal, which I'm sure you do, principal, assistant principal, teacher, teacher assistant, instructional support specialist, so on and so forth, but also your external. Externals just doesn't necessarily mean parents. It could be community members. If there's an organization, a faith-based organization, or a business that's adopted your school, a representative from those entities would be beneficial, as well as your parents. Any external person that can give you feedback and give you their perspective on possible opportunities of involving everyone, involving the internal and the external. And you'll lead that team in conducting an analysis on the climate of the school. This is all about the culture and the climate of the school, and how is it doing within the community and within the school itself, and what opportunities are there to improve. And you'll come up with a list of needs and a list of improvement for those needs, or a list of possible solutions that would address those needs. Well, in developing that plan, you need to identify the resources that you need, fiscal and human, to complete the SCIP, to make those improvements happen, to make those opportunities to grow happen. What resources do you need to provide that? And how would you allocate those resources? And then you're going to develop a marketing plan on showing the needs that you assessed with your team, and the opportunities for improvement, the objectives and goals and strategies that you develop to achieve that, including resource identification. This is basically an action plan. What's your goal? What's your strategy? When you're going to implement it? Who's responsible for it? How are you going to evaluate it? What resources do you need to make it happen? And what's the timeline or the time window? So it's just your basic action plan format. In task 4, you reflect on the remaining 9 competencies that you didn't reflect on in the OMA. So going back, as far as prompt 1, here's the information on setting up the team. Once again, do a background description of the setting. You can pull that from past evidences. What's the purpose of this needs assessment? As far as analyzing gaps in communication between internal and external communities, who are the participants that's going to help you, what is their role, what is their title, and how were they active in the process. Remember, whenever you're dealing with the team, in each of these evidence, you want to show your leadership of that team. You want to show how you facilitate the team, how you lead the conversation, how you help the team to draw the conclusions, how you help work your way through any conflict as far as disagreements and different perspective on solution and options. It's all about you showing your leadership. And make sure you give an analysis of what your team decided and what's your recommendations for the future in the way of short-term and long-term objectives. So that's task 1, prompt 1. Task 2, prompt 2, as you move through the North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions Survey, or a survey that's comparable if you're not in North Carolina, as if you're in South Carolina or some other state. A second climate survey is feasible. You can even work on something that's already been developed at your school or something that you did, but it's basically analyzing the same thing, because part of the culture of a school can be identified through these type of surveys. You can get, as a leader and administrator, you can get a clear insight on the culture and climate of your school by reviewing thτι type of surveys. Once again, you do a background on the organizational setting, all within the context of the OMA. What were the participants' analysis of the survey that you looked at? What were the procedures you used in collecting and analyzing the data, and how of what you found out? How are you going to use it to make recommendations to the school improvement plan? That's task 1. Task 2 is based on all these information recommendations that you made in prompt 1 of task 1 and prompt 2 of task 1. How are you going to make them happen? What resources do you need as far as physical resources and human resources to make that happen? What are your short-term and long-term objectives? And how are you going to use those resources to meet those objectives? That's task 2. Task 3 is the marketing plan. How are you going to develop a plan to initiate all of those recommendations? How are you going to market it? How are you going to share it with the community? How are you going to share it with leadership? Is it a presentation? Is it a flyer? Is it some type of graphic document that you're going to use to promote that plan? Whatever it is that you've developed to have an improvement on the needs that you identify, how are you going to communicate and sell that to your internal and external stakeholders? So once again, part of that is an action plan and how that's going to be used. I also like to see some graphics. If it is a presentation, if it is a flyer, if it is a video that you're going to develop, I like to see that within the narrative. And I think the evaluators too, it can be shown in the reference, or it can be shown within the narrative itself. But I think that's in doing that, I think that enriches that marketing plan. Once again, task 4 is reflecting on the 9 competencies that you didn't reflect on in the OMA task 4. And that is the SCIP. Here are the rubric requirements. Please look at these. These will help you set up your narrative and your subheadings for each task, and make sure that you hit each of those. If you want a SCIP score of a 4, make sure that you look at the accomplished column as well. All right, so what have we done in this video? Well, we began by reviewing an example of my internship shell. and how you would submit documentation to me. We looked at the scale handbook and how that information from the scale handbook is pulled out for resources for you to use in your course shell and in the internship shell. And then we went over the OMA and the SCIP and their individual tasks, and me giving you some information and overview on what's expected as you provide those narratives. As I said, I'll be meeting with you 2 times in the semester when Dr. Stone's class. So I look forward to seeing you face to face, so to speak. And then I'll be happy to answer any questions on what I've gone over today or anything else that may come up for you. And please remember, you'll hear me say this quite a few times, but if you ever need an individual Zoom or an individual phone call or a small group Zoom or a small group phone call, or the whole class wants to meet separately, just to pick my brain, all you need to do is let me know. We can set a date and a time that's convenient for everyone. We'll record the session for those that can't make it, and I'll be happy to provide you with any support that I can to make sure you're successful. I hope you have a great day. Thank you for attention. Thank you for watching this video. And as I said, reach out if you have any questions, and we will see you in Dr. Stone's class. Take care and God bless.